Hey there, Amos class. This is Brenton Fessler. I normally sit over there next to Josh Higgins. Keep him company tonight if he's there. He's a little lonely. Josh, I miss you. Hey, I am unable to be with you in class tonight in Pasadena. I'm actually doing this video up in Seattle, Washington. I flew up here this morning with my pastor on a ministry tour. We're spending a week with some pastors and church leaders up in this area. And thanks to Dr. Cottle, she's allowed me to do my oral presentation on my paper via video. So hopefully this is coming through okay. I chose the passage of chapter 5, verses 1 through 17. And it's interesting, the backdrop for me as I approach this text has been my life as a local church staff pastor. I serve at a church in Brea, North Orange County, and over the past month, 3 people in our congregation have died. I actually had to do one of the funerals a few weeks ago. But Mike, who was 49 years old, who was racked with cancer, died about 3.5 weeks ago. Next was a lady named Jeannie, who was in her early 30s, who had 2 kids, 7 and 10 years old, leaving behind a husband to be a parent, mom and a dad to both of them. It was a really sad funeral. And then last week, a friend named Bart died, who was in his 70s. Bart was just quality. Every week he'd come into church and give me a hug and say, "I love you, Brenton." And so our church has kind of been walking through the last few weeks a period of remembrance. And that helps me as I read this section of Amos, because he begins and ends chapter 5, verse 1 through 17 with a funeral song, and he's lamenting over Israel as if he is at a funeral, and as if God is lamenting over a dead person. That's what you do at a funeral. You remember. I remember Mike, just his kindness to me. I remember Jeannie and seeing the pictures as they flashed on the screen of her life, and just being overwhelmed with what that would be like to be her husband having to deal with the death of his wife. And then there's Bart, who's just such a great guy, and I'm going to miss the kind of part that he played at our church. But that helps me understand this section of Amos. And my angle that I wanted to take in my paper, as Dr. Cottle will read, is Amos is lamenting more than anything else because of the Israelites' failure to remember who Yahweh is, to remember their covenant relationship with Him, and to remember how it is that He wants them to live. They're failing over and over again to remember. And what helps me understand this is my role as a parent. My wife and I have 2 kids, Micah, who turns 1 this week, and Aubrey, who turns 4 in just a matter of months. And Aubrey, she's getting older now, understanding life a little bit more, and we are having to set in place rules such as you're not supposed to drink water too late because she's going to pee and wet the bed. Those are natural rules, and she understands the consequences. If she hits her brother, she goes to timeout. Or, for instance, we're at the food court at the mall, and she wants to play jungle gym with her chair. And I begin to make up rules, or I make up consequences, such as, Aubrey, you need to sit in your chair, or you see that man over there, he is going to come and get mad at us. And so she sits down. But she's getting smarter, and so the rules have got to be smarter. And I got to admit, sometimes I don't make up all that great of consequences. We were driving along one day in the car, and she began to weasel out of her car seat, out of her seatbelt. And I wanted to teach her a lesson that is not what you do, because otherwise she's the kind of, she has a personality that she's just going to do it over and over again. So I wanted her to understand the severity of what she was trying to do. And so in a heat of passion, and I'm not starting to say that I was right in this, and I look back and think, man, I should have done this better. But in a heat of passion, when she was getting out of her car seat, I said to her, Aubrey, get back in your car seat, because if you do not, you see the policeman over there, he is going to come and stop our car and take Daddy away. Which obviously isn't true, but I wanted her to understand that what she was doing was wrong. I wanted her to be able to begin to build a memory bank of what is right and what is wrong, and that's what my wife and I are tasked with as she grows up, helping her understand the difference between right and wrong, the consequences of her actions. And that is kind of where Israel is when Amos is prophesying to them and against them, that they have forgotten the ways that Yahweh wants them to live. And their failure has led to the social injustices that we read about in terms of the poor getting mistreated and the worship that is despicable in God's sight. And so for me, as I went through this paper, my life is what kind of bled through the pages, with the backdrop of these funerals at my church and what it is to remember a person, but to remember well and to remember what Yahweh has called us to do. And in my life as a parent, because ultimately God is the ultimate parent. He's the one who is constantly showing us grace over and over again, but He wants us to get it. And I feel for Amos, because it's like he's swimming upstream, because he, on behalf of God, wants the people of Israel to get it. So that's my take on Amos chapter 5, verses 1 through 17. Thanks again for letting me share via video, Dr. Cottle, and I will see all of you next week in class as we take our final. Have a good night.